Welcome to the channel, where today we unlock one of the most mystifying and controversial numismatic enigmas ever struck by the US Mint. What if a small mistake in 1995 created one of the rarest, most obsessively pursued Lincoln cents in American history, a coin whose secrets have only begun to surface 3 decades later, setting collectors into a frenzy of speculation, sleepless research, and whispered trades, all centered around a single penny whose anomalies seem too extraordinary to be accidental, too consistent to be random, and too elusive to be fully understood, because the 1995 1-cent coin, commonly brushed aside as mundane pocket change, hides within its copper-plated zinc layers a web of minting errors so subtle yet so sensational that they challenged the very protocols of U.S. coin production. And it all began with the now infamous double-die obverse, a phenomenon that should have never passed quality control but instead ignited a wildfire among collectors when the bold, shadowed duplication of Liberty and In God We Trust hinted at a catastrophic alignment flaw in the die hubbing process, exposing cracks in the precision machinery of the Philadelphia Mint that rippled through the industry and gave rise to countless rumors of unauthorized die tests, undocumented repairs, and last-minute minting shifts under the radar of official documentation. And yet, the story only deepens as more and more 1995 pennies began surfacing bearing bizarre deviations, die clashes so intricate they resemble ancient etchings, ghostly impressions of design elements that appear and vanish with the tilt of light, initials that fade like forgotten signatures, and even mint marks that defy their official placement or appear in shadowed form where no mint mark was authorized at all, spurring wild theories of clandestine overstrikes, misplaced master hubs, or a rogue press operator who either ignored procedure or tried to hide a mistake too late to contain. And while official statements from the U.S. Mint remain guarded, contradictory, or simply non-existent on many of these anomalies, internal memos and whistleblower recollections point to a period of immense mechanical recalibration in 1995, where aging equipment collided with new technological upgrades in a chaotic dance of misalignment and oversight, opening the floodgates for a series of production irregularities that left no two 1995 Lincoln cents entirely identical and no collector fully confident in what might still be waiting to be found. And as word spread across underground collector circles and obscure coin forums, the 1995 penny took on a legendary status, not for its composition or design, but for what it represented, a glimpse into a moment when the infallible machinery of minting faltered just enough to let imperfection slip through, imperfection so rare and peculiar that it began to feel deliberate, as if some invisible force had wanted a handful of these errors to escape, to provoke, to inspire a generation of numismatists to question everything they thought they knew about modern coin production. And so began the obsessive search, magnifiers in hand, eyes strained under desk lamps, collectors trading stories of specimens with extra thickness in the motto, faint outlines of Lincoln's profile doubled at the edges, unusual planchet textures hinting at misfeeds or improper annealing, and in some extraordinary cases, coins that appeared to have features from both 1995 and previous years, suggesting impossible hybrid dies or transitional planchets that shouldn't exist in any documented minting record, yet they do exist, held tightly in private collections or surfacing for mere hours on online auctions before vanishing into the shadows again. And every sighting brings with it another question: how many were made, how many still remain, and what unseen events led to their creation? A mystery that grows more complex with every new analysis, every metallurgical test that reveals inconsistencies in the coin's structure, every high-resolution scan that captures traces of repunch design elements, and every first-hand account of collectors who've stumbled upon these coins purely by chance only to be swept into an obsessive spiral of researching die varieties, press maintenance logs, and obscure mint operation reports from the mid-90s, as if decoding a government secret layered within a penny that weighs barely 3 grams but carries the gravity of a national mystery. And the deeper you dig, the more the story resists resolution. Why were so many different types of doubling reported, from Class 1 rotation to Class 4 offset, within the same production window? Why do some specimens exhibit cold flow distortions inconsistent with standard striking pressure? And why are there no consistent reports of scrapped dies or equipment failure from the mint that year despite overwhelming physical evidence that something unusual happened on the production floor? And as theories proliferate, ranging from lost transitional die trials and emergency backup dies to rogue employees experimenting after hours, the truth remains tantalizingly out of reach, buried beneath layers of bureaucracy, closed archives, and a culture of silence that only heightens the drama, making every 1995 penny you encounter a potential key to a hidden narrative, a fragment of a larger puzzle that even now continues to evolve with every new discovery. And that's what keeps collectors awake at night, scanning rolls, flipping through old change jars, attending estate sales in hopes of catching a glint of copper hiding something more, a misaligned bust, a misplaced mint mark, an unintended echo of letters, or a surface ripple that might suggest an underpolished die, a split serif, or some subtle distortion that turns a common coin into a cryptic artifact of numismatic rebellion. And it is that possibility that there is still more to uncover, still more stories trapped in metal and mystery, that turns the hunt for the 1995 Lincoln cent from a collector's curiosity into a full-fledged obsession, a fevered journey into history, mechanics, secrecy, and the human desire to decode what was never meant to be revealed. So as you watch this unfolding tale of the 1995 penny, ask yourself, what if the next coin you touch is part of this secret legacy? A sliver of history disguised as spare change, waiting to tell a story that even the mint itself can't, or won't, explain. Next. Today we peel back the layers of one of the most haunting, controversial, and persistently mysterious coins ever to emerge from the vaults of the US Mint, a coin that many collectors believe was never meant to exist, yet somehow did, and not just once, but potentially in forms so varied and untraceable that the full truth remains tangled in a fog of errors, anomalies, and whispered secrets surrounding the 2004 Lincoln penny, a simple cent that has become the epicenter of a numismatic enigma. So dense and emotionally charged that even seasoned experts hesitate to speak on it definitively, because what if a small mistake, a misplaced die, a flawed planchet, a last-minute mint substitution, resulted in one of the rarest and most unexplained productions in U.S. minting history, a coin whose details resist classification, whose patterns defy replication, and whose very existence seems to contradict the official record, beginning in a year when the mint was undergoing critical technological transitions, recalibrating its presses, phasing out older systems, and preparing for the upcoming redesigns that would usher in new generations of coinage. Yet amidst all this transformation, something slipped, or was deliberately concealed, leading to a series of Lincoln cents dated 2004 that have become the subject of endless debate, scrutiny, and obsession due to their bizarre features. Doubled dies with shadows so faint they appear and disappear with the angle of light, die. Clashes that seem to contain phantom devices not belonging to any known series, strange ghost-like impressions of Lincoln's jacket or facial profile misaligned as if stamped from a warped dimension, and most chilling of all, coins bearing faint or missing initials, with the VDB either partially obscured or eerily absent, suggesting a level of hub deterioration or strike anomaly so severe that some collectors wonder whether these were experimental strikes, rogue production runs, or emergency uses of rejected dies during night shifts never logged in official documents, and while the mint has remained silent or evasive, never releasing a comprehensive explanation for the volume and variety of 2004 anomalies, numismatists have pieced together fragments of a deeper narrative, one that includes anecdotal sightings of off-metal strikes, broad-struck specimens, coins with design remnants from earlier years, suggesting transitional errors that shouldn't have been possible given the locked down die schedules, and an entire subset of 2004 cents that appear to have undergone some form of planchet contamination, resulting in surface bubbling, lamination cracks, and micropitting inconsistent with standard zinc-coated copper blanks, fueling theories of defective strip batches, metallurgical substitutions, or even clandestine testing of alternate compositions never approved for circulation. And as these specimens began quietly trading hands, often off the record or between collectors who refused to share images publicly for fear of ridicule or retribution, the legend grew, not as a coin of high value but as a cipher of hidden truths, an artifact of a government process that either failed or chose to obscure its missteps, and the hunt escalated as more discoveries emerged, coins with off-center strikes so precise they reveal normally hidden parts of the die face, rim cuts that seem to evolve over a series of consecutive coins, misplaced mint marks that appear to float in the field rather than anchor to their assigned position, and even a series of strikes believed to show doubling on both obverse and reverse, an impossibility under standard hubbing practices unless two dies were simultaneously flawed, a notion so improbable that it suggests either a catastrophic error or an intentional deviation from standard procedure. And then came the most confounding reports. 2004 pennies showing signs of reverse die polishing so aggressive it erased minor design elements, possibly to obscure flaws or unauthorized changes, and specimens with strike-through errors that contain fibrous residues hinting at foreign material on the press floor, raising questions about contamination, negligence, or sabotage, and all of it centers on 2004, not 2003, not 2005, suggesting something unique, something undisclosed, happened within the Philadelphia and Denver mints that year. Something buried beneath layers of paperwork, redacted emails, and destroyed error logs, and so the community digs deeper, examining where patterns, dye markers, plating thickness, and edge anomalies, mapping out speculative timelines of production and trying to identify rogue dye pairings or overlapping press schedules that could explain the proliferation of outlier coins. But with every new specimen comes more contradiction. A faint extra column on the reverse memorial that vanishes under magnification, a misplaced date numeral that suggests a secondary strike, or coins with a blurry strike zone that breaks sharply into clarity near the rim, all pointing to unstable striking pressure or misaligned dyes never officially documented. And as whispers grow of collectors discovering whole rolls of strange 2004 cents tucked away in estate collections, garage sales, or forgotten bank boxes, the question becomes not just what happened in 2004, but who knew, who allowed it, and why the mystery persists with such intensity nearly 2 decades later. And some say the true story may never be told, because to unravel it might mean exposing systemic issues at the mint, breaches of protocol, or hidden tests conducted under the guise of normal circulation production, while others believe the coin is a kind of numismatic ghost, a relic of transition and uncertainty, whose very inconsistencies serve as a fingerprint of an institution caught between eras, one foot in the analog past and one in the digital future, producing a coin too strange to ignore but too elusive to fully understand. And so the 2004 Lincoln penny continues to haunt the minds of those who've held the wrong one in the right light and seen something impossible staring back, an extra fold in Lincoln's shirt, a doubled serif on the T in trust, a rim that suddenly breaks into an unexplainable flare, a thickness that feels wrong in the hand, a sound that rings dull when dropped, and it is in these uncanny details, these barely perceptible deviations, that the story takes hold, not just as a tale of minting error, but as a mystery of intention, identity, and lost control, drawing in new generations of collectors who inherit the questions without answers, the theories without closure, and the drive to keep searching for that one impossible coin that might finally explain what happened on those chaotic, undocumented days of 2004, when the machines kept running but something slipped, or was let through, and the world was left with a coin that doesn't just challenge the laws of minting, but the boundaries of truth itself. Last. Today we plunge into the heart of one of the most perplexing, emotionally charged, and fiercely debated mysteries in modern American numismatics, the 2013 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that should have been just another quiet chapter in the ongoing story of the U.S. mint cent production, yet instead has emerged as a symbol of unexplained errors, whispered anomalies, and a darkness that runs deeper than a simple factory flaw, because what if a small mistake made during a routine minting cycle created one of the rarest and most confounding pieces of U.S. coinage in recent memory, a coin that not only defies conventional classification but hints at a deeper, more systemic oversight that numismatists, collectors, and insiders alike have spent the last decade trying to unravel without success, and it all begins with the year 2013, a time when the Denver Mint was fully modernized, its equipment digitally monitored, and its quality control protocols among the most advanced in the world, and yet, out of that precision came chaos. Coins with ghosted devices, misaligned busts, designed shadows that flicker in and out of visibility, and worst of all, a troubling inconsistency in the mintmarks themselves, with some 2013 D pennies bearing what appears to be a floating or partially sunken D, others featuring a D so deeply impressed it disrupts the adjacent field, and still others showing faint doubling on the digits of the date, especially the 3, which under microscopic inspection often reveals an eerie split, not consistent with traditional hub doubling but instead suggestive of a mechanical disturbance at the moment of die creation. And as these anomalies began to surface, quietly at first, in obscure collector forums and late-night coin roll hunts, a pattern began to emerge. This wasn't just one error, it was many, and too strange to dismiss. And what's even more disturbing is that the mint has never publicly acknowledged these variations as significant, issuing no bulletins, no error logs, no clarification, even as experts across the country documented cases of coins with phantom reverse blurring, partial die clashes that suggest improperly annealed planchets, or in some extraordinary specimens, missing initials on Lincoln's shoulder, the designer's signature VDB, gone without a trace, leading many to wonder whether these were the result of overpolished dies, or worse, experimental die trials that were supposed to be scrapped but somehow entered circulation, a theory bolstered by a handful of unconfirmed reports of 2013 D cents with unusual metal coloration, surface peeling, or unnatural dullness inconsistent with standard copper-plated zinc composition, as though the wrong strip material was fed into the press, or alternative compositions were tested without documentation, a possibility further complicated by several specimens bearing rim anomalies, interior die breaks, or strange circular depressions that look less like mint damage and more like the telltale signs of a press calibration run gone awry. And as collectors began connecting the dots, from faintly doubled letters in Liberty to ghostly impressions of Lincoln's bust behind the visible strike, as if two conflicting die states existed simultaneously, the theories exploded. Were these the result of undisclosed die pairings accidentally deployed during a night shift at the Denver Mint, or was there something more clandestine involved, an unauthorized set of dies that slipped through an internal audit, or perhaps a malfunction during automated hubbing that replicated a flawed design across multiple machines before anyone noticed? And even when noticed, were the coins recalled, hidden, or simply ignored in a sea of billions, with only a few thousand, or perhaps even just hundreds, making it out into the wild to become the stuff of whispered legends and late-night obsessives? And what really pushes the mystery into conspiracy territory are the accounts. Scattered, hard to verify, but consistent in tone, from individuals claiming to have seen 2013 D pennies with reverse elements from different years, coins showing blurred wheat stalk impressions ghosting beneath the Union shield as if some ancient die had reasserted itself during the strike, or more plausibly, as if the reverse hub had been improperly wiped, not fully purged of legacy designs during retooling, creating a phenomenon numismatists have dubbed die memory, a ghostly echo of previous generations showing up where they simply do not belong. And while some mainstream experts dismiss these stories as pareidolia or damage, others have run metallurgical scans, digital overlays, and lighting analysis revealing subsurface irregularities and deep inconsistencies in the plating, as if certain planchets received incomplete bonding, or were struck under suboptimal heat conditions, leading to mushy design elements and bizarre surface textures that look melted, cracked, or unfinished under 10x magnification. And the question becomes, how did such coins pass inspection? What did the machines miss? And why has the Mint refused to acknowledge any official irregularities from the Denver branch in 2013 despite mounting evidence and an increasingly vocal community of collectors documenting everything from off-center strikes with missing design zones to perfectly centered coins that somehow feature design drift, with Lincoln's eye misplaced or his jacket fold abnormally sharp on one side, as if the die face itself had warped or suffered unnoticed wear during high-speed production runs? And with every new discovery, the legend of the 2013 D penny deepens, a coin that no one expected to talk about, but that no one can now ignore, because it taps into something deeper than error or accident, something that suggests a breach in process, a moment of systemic failure, or possibly a deliberate deviation buried beneath layers of bureaucratic silence. And as the collector community continues to hunt these strange scents, documenting edge cuts, pressure flares, plating bubbles, and even rare instances of double-struck obverse so subtly rotated they barely register to the untrained eye, the sense of urgency grows. If this was a known issue internally, was there a cover-up, or did the Mint never discover the problem in the first place? And if so, how many more of these coins could still be out there, buried in drawers, forgotten in change jars, waiting to be unearthed by someone willing to question the ordinary and see the extraordinary hidden in plain sight? And with every new twist, coins with weak rims, extra thickness on the date, shield details melting into the coin's edge, the line between error and mystery blurs until all that's left is obsession, the driving force behind every collector who's held a 2013 D penny up to the light and seen something staring back that shouldn't be there, something that raises more questions than answers and refuses to be explained. And so the search continues, a hunt not just for a rare coin, but for a deeper understanding of what really happened inside the Denver Mint in 2013, a year that should have been routine, but instead gave birth to one of the most complex, intriguing, and unsettling numismatic riddles of the modern age.